What's happening, everybody? Welcome inside a brand new edition of the Tall Can Audio Podcast. Matt Robinson with you as always in the TCA studio in beautiful Bytown, Canada. Give us a follow on social media at Tall Can Audio if you haven't done so already, and subscribe to the podcast on whatever app you're hearing us right now. And we welcome back a guy we spoke to towards the end of last week. There was lots to get to then. There's lots to get to now. He's just rushing in the door from I don't know, what would this be, day 3 now of CFL training camp. Steve Bunda, what's going on, man?
I'm good, Matt. It's good to be back on. And yes, day 3 of Red Blacks training camp. First day with pads on. It's always a little bit more fun and intense at practice, but it's been crazy to I've been covering this team since 2014 with TSN 1200, and just being able to interact with some of the players and the coaches and watch practice every other week. It's crazy how different this season has been with Ryan Dinwiddie as the new head coach here, but also just a lot of new faces, and practice goes a little long sometimes, and it's day 3 of camp, so it's still fun for a lot of the guys that are even veterans. Speaking to a couple veterans, and they're telling me Mike Wakefield's been around for quite a while, and Justin Hardy been a while, and getting into camp and being physical is exciting for them, right? And it's fun. It's like, you guys have been here in the camp, in the league for good 5 years or so now. And guys still love it, and I love that. It's just exciting times, man. How you been doing?
Oh man, pretty okay. Pretty quiet weekend around here, other than Mother's Day, right? We try and go out of your way a little bit on Mother's Day. I know you did the same. And look, you mentioned how quickly you had to run back in the door here just to do this, so we appreciate you making some time. And you also mentioned that in your haste, had to get a pint in you, right, after a long day. What are you going with over there, man?
Oh, man, I went with it, and I did, rookie move by me. I was like, first thing in the door, before I grabbed my laptop, before I grabbed my headset, before I did anything, I just went right to the fridge, grabbed myself a nice cold Guinness, and I'm like, this is going to be perfect on it.
That is not a rookie move, sir. That is a pro move, right?
Pro move for the podcast would have been making sure I wait to open it so everybody could hear the sound, and then I could kind of cheers you about how awesome this nice dark Guinness feels. And
there is not a time in my life that a Guinness isn't appropriate, right? Like, Guinness will always work.
It's a breakfast beer half the time. It's like, it's got half, it doesn't, but it tastes like coffee. And one thing I love about a Guinness is it's, a lot of these darker beers now, you're getting into the 7, the 9s, the 8%.
Yep.
It's nice just having a nice, 4% Guinness, 4.5% Guinness.
Yeah. I get it, man.
What do you got cooking today?
Well, you mentioned how crazy it's been covering the first few days of Red Blacks training camp and your crazy days. I'm rolling over here with the Hazy Days from the Cowbell Brewing Company. 6%. It's a juicy IPA. Certainly not the first time I've had this one, but it feels appropriate, man. We're staring it down. It's not quite here yet. It hasn't quite warmed up to it yet, but we are just a few days away from the May long weekend. And this feels like one of those May-long weekend kind of beers. A nice something juicy as the sun hopefully starts to come out, the weather starts to heat up. It does look like May-long will be over 20 degrees here in the nation's capital. I have no idea if you plan to be in the nation's capital or off to the cottage. We talked when you were in here last, you had a new toy to pick up for the cottage. Have you got possession yet? Have you had it up to the cottage yet? What's going on there?
Possession, yes. Took it for a little ride at the cottage yesterday. It was the biggest tease, but it was so it is exciting, man. But yeah, buying a Honda Pioneer side by side, and it was a big haul yesterday, kind of going from work, then picked it up from Brockville, brought it up to the cottage, dropped it off, but then I'm up there with 2 of my cousins, and it's like, well, let's take a 5-minute ride in it, let's go. So a little ride, then come back, and it's like, all right, well, got to go back to Ottawa and go to work. I am blessed to have my cottage so close to where I live and so close to where I work, but at the same time, it was such a tease to then have to leave my new toy there and be like, I'll see you in 2 days. Don't you move an inch. And then, it's...
You just sit here and look sexy till I get back. Right?
Exactly. And you bring up the weather, too, for the long weekend. So, yes, I can't wait. I'm like, this is where I am a pro. I took an extra day, so I took Friday off. So Thursday after work, I'll be up at the cottage and having a good couple days up there.
There you go.
Like you said, the weather looks good, but my one beef with Mother Nature is, why is it that it's like 27 and sunny? I mean, we're about a week's out from all this to be getting grumpy about it, but so far the weather looks like pretty decent throughout the entire weekend, but the nicest day is the Monday, which is always my beef, right?
Always.
Why? And I don't want to be driving home and it's like 25 and sunny.
Well, man, you mentioned mentioned that you're lucky enough to have your cottage pretty nearby. Mine's about 4 hours away, and without fail, like even if you've had nice weather throughout the weekend, or maybe the weather's been crappy throughout the weekend, or whatever's going on, without fail, when you're pulling out on the holiday Monday to make the long drive back up Highway 7 to come home, the sun is shining, the lake is perfectly calm, like everything just looks gorgeous, and you're like, well, guess I'll get in the car and drive for 4. It will always be like that on the final day, right?
It's just the way it works. And Mother Nature, you've been so cruel to us this week. There was frost the other night, Matt. What the heck are we doing here, Mother Nature? Get it together.
It's May. Let's figure this out.
Seriously.
I want to ask you, man. I want to pick your brain on a couple of different things here, but let's start with later tonight, and this episode will come out this afternoon, so some people will hear this before tonight's game, some won't catch it until afterwards, but we have seen the Montreal Canadiens now take care of business pretty well against the Buffalo Sabres in games 2 and 3. I was a little surprised how lopsided game 1 was for Buffalo, but maybe I shouldn't have been, right? Montreal, we always have this debate, right? The team coming off a 7-game series and the letdown for game 1 of another series starting up right afterwards. So maybe it was nothing more than that. I'm curious where you're at with the Habs, because you, perhaps like nobody else I've ever met, are able to wear 2 hats. Like, I've seen you root for the Leafs and the Sens at the same time, and I don't know many people who can do that. Are you getting on side with the Habs as well? Are you believing that they're for real? Are you starting to root for them at all? Like, as they sit here, you and I are talking on Tuesday afternoon, up 2-1, 2 pretty good games against the Sabres. The Habs are looking pretty good, man. Where are we at with that one?
Listen here, I love hats, but there's no chance I'm wearing and cheering for the Ottawa Senators. I want to see the Sens do good. The Leafs, they haven't earned my respect back yet as a fan until they make it past the second round. Then that might be a little bit more invested. Okay. But I do, and my job, I do want to see the Sens do well, because it is a lot of fun when they make the playoffs and the city feels that you feel the vibes. You're not a Sens fan, but it's a lot more fun when the teams are making the playoffs. You can feel it around town. Yeah. And my theory is, I think that when it comes to the Montreal Canadiens, I don't really care. I've actually been more on the side of the Buffalo Sabres. I like that underdog, the new team in the playoffs in a while. But the one thing I've liked so much about the series so far is the chippiness. A little bit too extreme last game. There was a lot of after whistle stuff.
Yes.
Dobash, I think, was ready to just call her quits. And not personally, but man, the guy was getting roughed up almost after every whistle, and towards, I think it was the second period, he's getting run into, and he just gets up and he kind of looks at the scrum.
Remember a few minutes later, one of the refs comes down and finds somebody's mouth guard in the net, and you're like, wow, this is getting wild. Right?
Exactly. And the chippiness back and forth. But Montreal's no quit is pretty intense, and good for Lane Hudson, because like the guy, man, he's kind of given, I'm not that it's a coming out party for him, but in the playoffs, when everyone's watching you in these big series and you have moments like he has, I thought I've just been so impressed with him. And other guy, I think we talked about it last week, but Suzuki has been a guy that since the Olympics, I've been like, okay, I really like this guy a lot. But for me, I just think I think the series still goes 7 games. I don't know what it is, but Buffalo just strikes me as they're never going to be dead till they're dead. And I know that they split at home already, and Montreal took the game in Montreal already. But I do think that they might make a bit more of a game out of this one tonight. I think it's going to be a little bit. It
looks like they're going back to Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen in goal. We'll see how that plays out. You're right. I don't think the Sabres are dead and buried by any means. It's 2-1, right? We'll see what happens here in game 4. And I'm with you. Like, I can't cheer for the Habs, and normally I can't really cheer for the Sabres either. Like, there's a bit of used to be a pretty good rivalry there with Toronto. But with how long their fans had been out of it, and like how loyal that fan base had been, it's been fun to watch that. I do think, regardless of who you're cheering for in that series, it has been one of the more interesting series of the second round. Obviously, Carolina-Philly wasn't interesting at all. Colorado-Minnesota.
Not even close.
No, I know. Colorado-Minnesota has been pretty good, but maybe not quite living up to the hype. Like, there's been
very
a couple
physical, though, eh? Like, but it's been a very interesting series.
But each game has been pretty lopsided, too, right? Like, it's kind of, that one's a weird one. I guess I still got my Ducks hat on, but these late games are making it hard on me, man, to stay up late. Yeah, for sure. But this Montreal Buffalo one, it's fun. I'm with you. I think it's going at least 6 and probably 7. I guess we'll see what happens tonight. But yeah, the Habs, man, it was interesting because for a long time, like their big guys, like Slafkovsky got going in game 1, round 1 with a hat trick. And then through the rest of that series against Tampa, it was kind of their depth that kept them going. Their top guys weren't really getting it done. But it sort of feels like that has shifted. You mentioned how good Lane Hudson has looked here in the last 2 games. Cole Caulfield got on the score sheet here quite a bit over the last little while. Yeah, like if they're going to go, like you can kind of look at it 2 ways, whereas like, oh man, like their top guys just aren't playing and it's going to be a short playoff run if that's all those guys have to offer. The other way to look at it is, yeah, their top guys haven't been going, but they're still here. And if those guys get going, they're going to be a monster to shut down. And that's kind of what feels like is happening right now. Like I said, I still think this is a long series, but I'm more and more, and it's easy to say now when they're up 2-1, think this is Montreal's series for the taking.
Yeah, I think so. Like the momentum is certainly riding with them, and they do look like the better team. And I quite think it is Dobash, right? The goaltending has been kind of the difference for Buffalo, right? Like you said, they're flipping back and forth between goaltenders, and I think that we've seen, and a good example of it too is look at Carolina, right? Like Logan Stankoven has been a Conn Smythe kind of player for them, but it's like okay, and Freddie Anderson's been really good, but like guys like Sebastian Aho, Svechnikov, like. Yep. Where have they been? So it's been that kind of playoffs so far. Kind of I don't want to say every single series so far, but a lot of the less spoken names have kind of stepped up in moments and a little bit more surprising. And I look at this Buffalo and Montreal Canadiens series, and I just think like this is a series where I think the physicality and the craziness is already kind of peaking. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's going to get much more than it did last game because it kind of seems like it was more like message sending.
That one, it got off the rails a bit. A whole pile of power plays. Like both teams will want to be a little more careful than that, I think, moving forward.
Absolutely, and I think that's the big thing, right? The power plays, special teams has been so big in that series in general. So I am leaning towards, I think Montreal can win it in 7, but if you're asking me to pick a rooting interest, I'm still like kind of holding on to Buffalo's hope that they can finally get like a secure kind of let's lock it down goaltending situation, and then they can just kind of make this like like it's a tight series now, let's go. Because I do like the environment. I do think that Sabres fans, I like the guys out on the rollerblades beating up the dummies that they're putting on the jerseys.
Love to get my hands on one of those beer savers.
The beer savers, right? Like they look like they're having fun, and it's kind of bringing that Buffalo Bills, like Bills Mafia kind of style
let's
to
set
it.
some tables on fire and get going out there, Buffalo. Like,
exactly, get that spark going. But it's in Montreal, so it's how do you kind of get that road game going? And the one thing I do want to point out too is I think I said it after the last series, but Nick Suzuki talking about a guy like Marty St. Louis and how much of a impact he's made on the team and the mentality he brings to that room, and he's a guy too that like the adversity he's fought and everything he's been through his career, and now as a coach, seeing the players feed off of him, you notice it. Like you notice that energy he brings, and I think like that's one thing with Montreal that I've noticed a lot is, man, they must be very much in love with Marty St. Louis in that locker room because it really feels like he gets his message across.
100%, man, for sure. One of the other things, and I should thank the good listener for sticking with me there on Monday, where we normally have a guest, but that was a solo show, and I pounded a couple of things off my chest here, Bunda, and then promised the good listener that you would arrive here today and allow for a better listening experience. But one of the things I brought up on that Monday episode was kind of an odd, at least in my opinion, roster construction for Team Canada at the World Hockey Championships. There's some older veteran guys, there's some younger kind of guys that are just there taking up roster spots. And look, we don't have to get into all of that again, but one of the things that did make news here over the last day or two was the fact that they named Macklin Celebrini captain. And there were other guys there, certainly, I think probably at the top of the list if we had guessed at the beginning of the process after seeing the roster. Probably the 2 favorites would have been either Ryan O'Reilly or John Tavares to be captain. Now, Tavares did just do it a year or 2 years ago, I guess, when he was there. So maybe they're looking to mix it up a little bit. But Macklin Celebrini is the only player who was on the Olympic team who has come to this tournament. For a lot of guys, it was a lot of hockey. Now, he's a young guy. He's maybe doesn't have the family commitments or whatever else, but it would have been easy for him to say no. He put up 115 points or whatever it was for San Jose. He was great for Canada at the Olympic Games in a way that I don't think a lot of people would have expected. Did you have any thoughts on the fact that they have named a 19-year-old Macklin Celebrini captain of this version of Team Canada?
Yeah, I love it. I think that if they were ever going to do it, now is the time. I think seeing him in the Olympics, he was one of their better players. Now you go back to the gold medal game, and I think there was a couple chances he had, and it was rough to think back about that. But I think that this is the perfect time because you brought up like they're the assistant captains in John Tavares and Ryan O'Reilly, two of the, guys that have been captains a long time for multiple organizations, and Ryan O'Reilly, right, is a guy that does plays both so good offensively but can also play defensively strong. I think that you have a guy like John Tavares, like again, Islanders captain, Leafs captain for a big chunk, guys that have been there and done that. Who else better to learn from, right? You have a couple other guys that are, good veterans around there. I think when you think of like Hockey Canada in the future, whether it be the next Olympics in a couple years from now, or maybe even just next year,
World Cup here in 28,
World Cup in 28. Guy like Macklin Celebrini has to be a guy that they're going to lean on, right?
For 15 years, this guy's going to be a part of Team Canada from here on out, right?
Exactly. Why not get him ready and feel, hey, like this is your time to build your leadership role. You did a great job being such a youngster, with the Olympic team and being surrounded. There's already a good chunk of Canadian guys like Connor Bedard who was left off the team. I thought he should have been part of the Olympic team in general as an extra body just to get that feel. But same feel here when you get to the World Hockey Championships. Hey, it's a tournament that realistically doesn't mean much. It's good for the guys to wear the jerseys, get a couple extra games in.
Sure.
I don't know, where is Canada really done? What have they done in the World Hockey Championships the last couple of years?
They haven't won in the last 3 years, man. They got to get going.
I couldn't even tell you, right? Yeah. I couldn't even tell you, but I do like the fact that it's like, hey, this is something where, let's build some, camaraderie with the guys, but also like learn to be able to be you come down to the World Hockey, World Cup or, like the Olympics. He's a guy you could potentially put with another A, right? He's been there now and he's learning, and I think it's a great thing. I like it. I don't know, did you not like it a little bit, or were you a little shocked by it? But I liked it. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I didn't like it. I was very much surprised by it when you look at some of the other pieces that are there. But the more you think about it, it makes sense. When you look at the rest of this team, like if Mark Scheifele didn't make the Four Nations team based on the season he was having and didn't make the Olympic team, I don't think there's much reason to expect he will get there. Like he's kind of at that age. I think for John Tavares and Ryan O'Reilly, their days on the A teams at at a World Cup or an Olympics are probably done. You look around at some of the other pieces that are here, like Evan Bouchard maybe has a chance, but you're not going to put, I don't think you're going to put the C on him. Morgan Riley's days, if he was ever going to be one of those guys, they're gone. He's not going to be. So I don't have a problem with it. Like I said, I was just surprised by it a little bit. This is the youngest captain that Team Canada has ever selected at a World Hockey Championships. But, when you look at what he's done thus far and what he's done in his 19-year-old season with the Sharks, and he's been nominated for Most Outstanding Player, the Ted Lindsay Award, by his peers, not by the reporters. And I'll be real with you, man. That's the one I put more value on, the more weight on, who the players think is the best player in the league, not the one where the reporters make their vote. That's a whole other discussion. Like I said, it's not that I dislike it. It just caught me off guard. I was a little surprised by it. I thought there was a couple of names there that would have been easy to throw the C on, maybe Ryan O'Reilly, and you just carry on and go do the thing. But it makes some sense for Hockey Canada to, like you said, start preparing him now, because for the next couple of times out, whether Crosby goes to the 28 World Cup, I assume he'll still be good enough to do so. The 2030 Olympics is probably McDavid's time to be captain. Like, it's probably still a ways off before he leads the best on best teams, but you might as well give him the opportunity here as Canada's clear best player at this tournament to lead the way and let him start getting ready for that. It's an interesting choice. Like I said, it surprised me. It's not that I don't like it, but it did surprise me.
I like the idea of passing the torch, but like you said, this guy is already, as a rookie and this guy his trajectory is, still going up.
Yep.
Like we don't, maybe he becomes, in a couple of years, one of the best players in the league alongside just under or around.
If he's not already, right?
Exactly. So I think that this is the perfect time. And like I said, World Hockey Championship, no disrespect, but I want want to call it more of a glorified tournament. Nothing really exciting or super awesome about it. I probably might watch 1 or 2 games if they're in the gold medal.
See, I get into it a little bit, especially when it's in Europe because of the afternoon games, right? Like while I'm puttering away and editing here in the studio, you like a good 2 p.m. start for Team Canada or something like that. And these guys, they have a mission because Matthew Tkachuk is over there and he's trying to become a member of the Triple Gold Club, right? A world champion. He's already a Stanley Cup winner and an Olympic champion. I don't want him joining that club. These guys have to shut that down. These guys have to stop Matthew Tkachuk. There is an important job to be done at this tournament. So
I love your cheering against
the spite,
ideology.
Man. Heavy spite.
I also do appreciate and respect the fact that Matthew Tkachuk is doing that, right? Because you talk about a guy that's been through a lot the last couple of years.
It's true.
Back-to-back cups, lots of hockey, gold medal. He could look at this tournament and say, I'm good. But, he said, I want to go and be a part of this. And I think that says a lot about some players. So I do like that and respect. I respect that fact. I mean,
I know what you're saying, though.
But
right.
I do respect him being there. And you know what? It'll add a little bit of chippiness and competitiveness to the tournament, right? A lot of these guys, like you said, the familiarity. You don't think Matthew Tkachuk and Macklin Celebrini are going to be looking at each other?
For sure,
they're going to be eyeing each other up. They're going to be having some words, and they're going to be having some fun. Again, I don't. It's not as exciting for me as a lot of the other tournaments that go on, World Juniors, Olympics, World Cup, even. But it's something where I think it means a little bit to have a guy like Celebrini there, kind of sheltered, pass the torch, see what you can do as a leadership. As you pointed out, man, Ted Lindsay, that's a big award to win while your peers. Like that means a lot, and that says a lot. I watched a few San Jose Sharks games this year, not as much as I'd like to, because they were exciting and fun team, and a lot of it revolved around him. So I'm happy he's getting this opportunity. I think it's a great call, and I think when you have guys like Ryan O'Reilly and John Tavares, who, like I said, have been in part of leadership roles in the NHL and in these kind of tournaments before, they realize the same thing. Like they don't really care about being the captain. They want to be able to help out the future guys that and be there, and they're going to still be assistant captain. So everything is cool with me. I love this idea. I really do.
Okay, and see, Rob and I had a debate at the beginning of this hockey season.
Hey, Rob.
Yeah, I should mention to the good listener, he'll be here on Friday, making an in-week appearance for. With my schedule and everything that's been going on, we've had to make some adjustments. So Rob will be back for the good listener there on Friday morning if you're interested in that. If not, I get it. But he and I had a debate about the power in California, and for quite a while it's been the Kings while the Sharks and the Ducks stunk. And I said to him, how long before one of those two teams or both of those teams pass LA? And we had an interesting debate, and I don't think anybody saw quite what Anaheim, like right down to with like 3 weeks left in the season, Anaheim was leading a pretty bad Pacific Division. They did end up falling out of that, but they did pass LA. And honestly, San Jose made it far more interesting than I think a lot of people thought they would. And so all of a sudden, you remember the days as well as I do, watching the Leafs, watching the Sens, watching the Hat. When you go out to California, it used to be a gong show. Like you had to get through the powerhouse, like LA Kings, who still had the remnants of Stanley Cup champions. The Sharks had Thornton and Couture and all those guys. The Ducks still had Getzlaff, and like it used to suck to go through LA. If you came out of there with 2 points in any form, you were pumped about it. And then LA California sort of fell off, and they seem to be bouncing back here a little bit. And one of the principal reasons is Macklin Celebrini, who will be captain for Canada at the World Champion. But one of the other reasons is the reemergence of the Ducks. And we did see earlier today the 3 nominees for GM of the year. And Pat Verbeek, the GM of the Ducks, is one of them. Chris McFarland, the GM of the Colorado Avalanche, is another one. And Bill Guerin of the Minnesota Wild was the third. I said down the stretch, I don't believe in Minnesota. I don't think Minnesota's for real. And then they knocked off Dallas, and they're making life difficult for Colorado. So obviously I'm slightly mistaken on that. But those are 3 very different teams, right? We saw Minnesota make a huge trade, which is part of the GM's job, and bring in Quinn Hughes, and those guys have been very good ever since. Colorado's been good for a while, but this year took it maybe up a notch. So Chris McFarland, certainly a worthy nominee there. And Pat Verbeek, man, the Ducks, I think, have arrived a little sooner than people thought. They're here in the second round, putting up a good fight against Vegas. Do you have a preference? Would you, if you had a vote, is there one of those guys that you'd be looking at above the rest?
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to kind of maybe go with Chris McFarland. He did a good bit, and I think Colorado, like, they've pretty much shown that they've been the better team than Minnesota, and I think they're probably going to run away with the series 4-1. It's already 3-1 Colorado, but I just like the way, like, trading back again for Nazem Kadri, right, bringing a familiar face in there, but dealing with everything over the year. But I do like that Bill Guerin made these things. Now, this is my unpopular opinion. Maybe it's popular. I don't know, but I kind of hate that these are just regular season awards. I get it. The GM of the year.
This is why they wait for this one. Like, the GMs, they allow to go into the playoffs because,
for sure,
it should, right? Like, whose teams are actually built for the playoffs and who can hang around. All three of these teams have made it at least as far as the second round.
Yeah, and I think I'm more of I believe that this is an award that should use the entire playoffs. I think that this is one where, look, you don't know how guys are going to shape up. Like, again, Minnesota, nothing on Bill Guerin, but like you said, pulled off a massive trade middle of the year, and they've been great since then. And they, being able to have kind of the roster they do constructed, they're a team that I don't want to say is slept on, but they're a hockey market.
I was clearly sleeping on them.
Yeah, well, they're a hockey market in Minnesota, but they don't get the hype as lot of these other teams. Right. And so when I look at the roster, and I'm thinking, like, this is pretty deep, and Hughes is easily one of the best defensemen in the league, and I think that we're looking at a roster where this is exciting, but I don't want to say that he's GM of the year, but then they don't make it past the second round against Colorado. So then, I look at the situation of how do you not give it to McFarland if he ends up beating Bill Guerin? Then you want to factor in the Ducks. And if they beat Vegas, then it's like, okay, like, look at these rosters. I think that this is an award that should come out after the playoffs are done. Whoever wins the cup.
Well, Brian Burke always said there's already a GM of the Year award, and it's the guy who wins the cup. Like, clearly that guy built the best team. And
that's my kind of beef with it. It's kind of like, again, we just talked about the Hart Trophy and Ted Lindsay, right? You can vote for the Hart Trophy, and it could be random guys that win it, but everybody knows, like, if your peers are the ones that vote you as the Ted Lindsay, that's probably a lot bigger of an award, right? Rather than voted on by writers and guys that are just kind of covering teams. Like, and no disrespect to any of that, but that's where I look at the GM of the Year award. Winning the cup is the biggest thing. So if a GM goes out and makes a lot of moves and they're out in the first round, or in the they don't even make the playoffs or anything like that, obviously, like you said, they have to tie it in. But I think it's a perfect, like, even right after the cup final, you want to make it, the conference finals. That would be the perfect time to maybe announce the kind of the contenders.
I think that's when they used to do it. I think they moved it this year. Now, maybe it was after the second round and not after the third round, but by then, like, you get 3 nominees and 4 teams are in the conference finals. Like, we probably know who the best 4 teams are. And to me, what's interesting this year about this one is 3 teams in sort of 3 different situations in terms of the way they've... Like, Pat Verbeek, full value for being here. He has a young team on the up and come. He's drafted well. They've developed well. They went out and traded for Cutter Gauthier and added him to a nice young core.
Love him.
So they're in one place, and then at the deadline they do go out, and even before the deadline, like, they had Chris Kreider a couple years ago in free agency. It's Killorn, and then at this deadline it's John Carlson, who's now running their number 1 power play, and he's got a ton of playoff experience. So that was a guy who had a young team that was ready to go and needed a boost, and he added some nice veteran parts to it. So that's one way of being a great GM. Colorado has been elite for like 8 years now, or maybe a little bit less than that, but won the cup in 22, and he's been trying to keep his team afloat, right? Or keep them in that mode. And so, like you said, he goes back out and he gets Nazem Kadri, which is a great move. He comes and gets Nick Waugh from Toronto to kind of add to the depth there at center. A year ago, he replaces his entire goaltending tandem and gets Blackwood and Wedgwood, who've both been fantastic. So that's one way. He's trying to maintain his spot at the top of the mountain. And then Minnesota is sort of in between the two, right? Where Anaheim is young and up and coming and trying to get in the mix. Colorado is trying to stay at the top of the mountain. Minnesota's sort of halfway up the mountain, and they're always sort of around, but they aren't able to get into that elite group. And they go out and they grab Quinn Hughes, and they have a rookie goaltender who obviously Bill Guerin would have been in charge of overseeing his development. So I like this group in the way that the three franchises are in three different places, and all three guys have clearly done a nice job. But it's just interesting to me they were at least able to, when putting the final nominees here together, to acknowledge that there are many ways of doing this, right? Because there were three GMs here monitoring three different situations.
Yeah, and I like the idea too. Like, again, I feel like I could lean another way. If Pat Verbeek and the Ducks they beat Vegas, I think that's a huge hurdle for them.
100%.
And that I think when you get Anaheim versus Colorado, I mean that's my idea of I'm not going to completely get rid of Minnesota, but you know what, I am. And I'm looking at a theory here of, okay, you get Minnesota versus even if you get Minnesota somehow versus Vegas, it's not going to be disappointed at all to me, but I think that will give you a better answer for, who is the GM in that sense. But I do like the way that, like you said, you look at Anaheim, and that's a team that probably wasn't supposed to be here, but they are here. Yeah. And a guy like Cutter Gauthier, who has 40 goals this year, he showed up so far in the playoffs, like he's been dominant. And like, again, that's a big offseason.
They drafted Beckett Seneca second or third overall when no one thought they were going to. That was a ballsy move.
60-point year for him. There's a lot. So I like, and they had pieces there. Troy Terry, right?
Sure.
And I also think too, adding the right guys. Kreider's a big add. That's a guy that has shown up and been known as a big body player.
Say what you will about Jacob Trouba. New York wanted to be done with him. He's contributing out there, man. He's working it. So
I like that idea though, and adding guys like Granlund and McTavish being around there. Like I said, they have a good mix of kind of younger guys that have been there for a couple of years. And I know Troy Terry isn't really young anymore, but he's still in that kind of era.
First playoffs,
yeah. And so I look at a lot of these guys and I'm thinking and Leo Carlson's another one that we haven't even mentioned yet. But I think that so far that's a very good spot for this roster to be in, and the additions were great. So it's tough. I look at the situation where I don't really want to make a decision on it. If I'm going to have to pick one now, I'm just going to go with the safe one. And you know what? I think Colorado is just the best team so far left in the playoffs anyways.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
I think it's when you have probably the two best players left in the playoffs and guys like Cale Makar and Nathan McKinnon, right? I see that
being
team
ballsy enough to ship out Rantanen and get Natchez for him, and all of a sudden Natchez turns into a 100-point player. He's done his work there too, right? It's interesting. And we mentioned Matthew Tkachuk going for the Triple Gold Club. Jackson Lacombe is also going for the Triple Gold Club. He won a world championship with USA last year and an Olympic gold this year. If the Ducks could somehow win a Stanley Cup, Jackson Lacombe of the Anaheim Ducks would also join the...
That's a trivia buster, right?
Yeah,
right there.
Yeah, man.
Jackson, nothing against Jackson Lacombe, but just
that's not a name
you're going to be...
No.
Yeah.
100%. For sure, man. I want to talk to you about some fights that went down this past weekend and that are going to go down this weekend. But just before we get there, we did reference off the top that you have been at a couple of the first days here around CFL training camp for the Ottawa Red Blacks. I'm just sort of curious with the new guy in charge there, Ryan Dinwiddie, and there's been a ton of turnover across the roster on special teams, on defense, on offense. What's jumped out at you here, if anything, over the first couple days?
Yeah, I'd say two things so far. The intensity that he brings, you could hear him. He's yelling, he's coaching, he's trying to get his guys going. But I think he's a guy too that also is going to make sure he holds his players accountable. I was speaking with him after practice, and he said, I had to stop practice and make some guys run because people were being stupid. He's holding players accountable on day 3 of training camp, and there's just a difference in that vibe of he's coaching out there and. This team in the season is going to come down to Drew Brown, right? They've done a great job at adding guys. They already have a decent, kind of core of guys and veterans and new guys, everybody, but it's always going to come down to the quarterback. And, Drew Brown has struggled with his health last year and, didn't have the greatest year. He's coming back now. And, you got Ryan Dinwiddie, who's won Grey Cups with guys like Nick Arbuckle, who I thought his career might have been done when he left Ottawa for the second time, right?
Yeah.
He shows up in Toronto and he's made him into something. So it's okay, what can Ryan Dinwiddie do here. And hearing him coach and, handle situations, like I said, day 3 of minicamp, he doesn't like the way some of these guys are doing things, and he's calling them out and he's saying, let's go. We're going to stop practice and I'm going to let you guys know. I like that ability of holding guys accountable because, and not that Bob Dice completely didn't, but there was a lot of times where people were like, well, he needs to start holding guys accountable.
Different voice, for sure.
And it's a different voice. It's a different thing. So far, I really like that intensity. It's just, you can notice it. You hear the coaching staff yelling and teaching guys and let's go, like move things around. And then he's, coaching the offense, and you're hearing him as well, coaching and telling guys what to do. And if they're not doing what he wants, he's letting them know. And I think that's just so good and just something that kind of just so far stood out. And again, it's only been, a couple of days so far in the camp. So I am really looking forward to seeing, a couple more days. And next week, there's going to be, some roster cut downs over the next couple of days already. And then, next Friday is, first preseason game. So it's always kind of,
fast,
it happens really fast, and that's the thing. So, so far, again, first day of using pads and, guys hitting each other is already adding some intensity to it. But again, a week from now when guys are, real roster spots are on the line here and guys are trying to fight for those last couple jobs and, they need to make an impression and you're finally not hitting your own team, right? It's, training camp is always good when you're hitting your own guys and you're getting to that spot, but it's not because you also want to, not make it, nobody wants to get injured. Nobody wants to do anything like that. But when you get to, play another team, that's when you can make your mark, right? Nobody really can see or care about what you're doing every day in camp because not everybody can see that, whatever. But when you put it on film and you put it in against the game, that's
full
when you're going to
aggression, full out. Yeah.
That's when you make a
not
real
afraid
name for
to
yourself.
blow somebody up.
No, exactly. And then that's the thing. It's so far exciting. And again, like I said, the intensity is absolutely noticeable. And I like the way Coach Dinwiddie so far is kind of just, like I said, it's day 3 and he's already calling people out and calling the team out and saying, look, we got to be better than this. So I like that already. It's a great mentality to have kind of for our new coaching staff.
This weekend on Netflix, we're going to see a fight card that is a little bit different, obviously, than what the UFC has traditionally put out or has put out lately. And it's honestly, if I'm being real with you, man, a little bit of what I thought we might see for the UFC White House card, right? The idea, you and I talked about it being the UFC's WrestleMania instead of just celebrities. And we've seen that work before. This is kind of the Paul brothers promotion in partnership with Netflix, which always works and always gets big numbers because so many people have Netflix. But this is a card headlined by Ronda Rousey versus Gina Carano. And those are two big names. Lots of people know who Ronda is, certainly. And she was a huge star in the UFC. She ended up taking off to do some movies and then in WWE for a while. And it's a name. I'm not sure how great of a fighter there still is in there. Similar with Gina Carano. They've sort of been out of the game for a little while here. And we can dive down the card a little bit because there are other names on this as well. I'm sort of curious. This is one of those Paul brother things, but I will stop short on this one of calling it a freak show like I used to about the other Triller fights that they would do where one of the Paul brothers would box some 50-year-old former UFC fight, and it was just garbage. And I never liked it. I rarely watched it. It wasn't any good. I expect this to be better than that, but not to a UFC standard. It reminds me a little of the old MTV celebrity boxing, like this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Where are you at with this thing, man? Netflix is a big platform. They've promoted the hell out of this thing. The card has some reasonable names on it. Do you expect it to do well? Do you expect it to be entertaining? Are those two different questions? What's rolling around in your head as we roll up to this thing?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I look at it as, I don't know, and Ronda Rousey's already bothering me, and I get it. She needs to sell her fight, but she's going out there and talking about how it's Muhammad Ali and Mike Tyson, and do you see that? Like, it just, I can't believe.
This is like Tyson, this is like Ali, this is like UFC 1, if I could have been like, you're none of those things.
and look, I love what Ronda Rousey did for the UFC and how she's very much a pioneer, and same with, Carano. Like, this is really cool for the both of them, and, I think that when I watch, and that's the thing, like, this is an event where I'm going to be like, what am I doing Saturday night? Am I awake enough? Do I care what's going on? What time does it start? What time am I going to bed? Do I really want to watch it? And again, it's supposed to start at main card at 9:00 on Netflix, like you said. Easy access to it. If I'm not doing anything, I'll throw it on.
This is it.
But I don't care at all. Like, again, for me, there's a reason why all of these fighters are fighting on this card and not in the UFC. That's what it comes down to for me. You know, the one exception I always give is Francis Ngannou, but he's kind of chose money versus fighting, right?
Yes.
Again, Philip Lind's he's not even allowed to be in the UFC anymore. He's so bad. Like, come on. And, you know, Mike Perry has been I like that fight more than I think anything. Mike Perry versus Nate Diaz, just because these two are just wild card crazy guys. And Mike Perry is a bit of a nutcase and has been bare knuckle champion. And, you know, Diaz has kind of just been floating around, but always puts on a great show.
And he has a name too. Yeah.
Yeah. And names. I think that's the one thing that is, you're getting maybe like Junior Dos Santos is fighting against Robelis.
Oh my God. I didn't even know Junior.
So like I'm looking at the card and I'm thinking like, yeah, this very much card reeks of like a lot of these fighters just wanting a paycheck.
Yeah.
And look, by all means, go get the money, go do this.
For
but
sure.
You can't expect me to be like, this is going to be so sick. I look at this as closer to a Logan Paul, Mike Tyson kind of fight card. Then
you mean we're going to see somebody's bare ass here at some point?
There's probably a chance you see some bare ass, and I don't know who, but you know,
it's going to be Diaz.
But I look at this as I don't know, like I'm kind of I know you say it's different, and I kind of agree. It is different. There's a lot better names, and they're putting a little bit more extra emphasis on this stuff. And but I look at this as these guys are
it's
they're
like
all
the
fighting
PGA senior tour or something. Like there's something to it. It's more credible than some of the stuff these guys have done in the past, but it's not the UFC. And look, I got enough beef with the UFC right now that I'd be anxious to give
100%.
Somebody else their props if they were preparing to actually challenge them. But yeah, I don't know. These are all, you know, if you looked at this card in 2018, you go, holy shit, this is incredible, right? Like, or 2016 even, if you got to go back a little. But to see Ronda versus Carano and to see Francis here and to see Diaz here and all the, but it's all just kind of, and yet I think it'll do monster numbers, man. Like it's very much what you just said. I don't know. I got nothing really kicking around, or I've been outside in the sun all Saturday because it's May long weekend. I flip something on and you're just clicking around on cable. I'd stop. Would I spend $50 on it on pay-per-view? No, but they're not asking me to. It's on Netflix, which most people already have. I think this is going to probably do pretty big numbers, but I don't expect them to be very good fights.
I think that's the thing is I think the numbers are going to be good. The fights aren't going to be, again, between Ronda Rousey and Carano, like neither of them been in the octagon for quite some time.
No.
Like you said, you're going back to 2015, 26, like that's 10 years ago, right?
Yes.
That's the problem. It's not 10 years ago anymore. We're this much in the future. So
I tell myself that when I get out of bed every morning, Bunda. My back, my head, like, Jesus
every
Christ.
day, man, every day. But that's the problem, right? Like, and it's the same for these fighters that have been through wars already. And I look at the situation, it's like, okay, so Ronda Rousey already said this is her last fight, probably. She's promised her husband, but she might go back on it. Who knows? She always seems to flip-flop and make up a million different excuses.
Money out there. Yeah.
Exactly. So either way, I look at this as, okay, you got two kind of, I don't want to say completely washed up, but just, washed up and aren't really relevant anymore fighters that are trying to make themselves relevant in that situation.
It's a one-off, yeah.
And I'm like, not really interested. I look at maybe Francis Ngannou.
I like Francis.
I do, but I only like it to see how does he look?
Yeah.
Is he a guy that still has a chance to go back to the UFC?
Right.
That's what I look at. But I also fear maybe he does look good. Maybe he does mend fences with the UFC. Maybe him and Dana say, let's figure this out, get you back in here. But then by the time he comes back, he's not the same fighter anymore, and he gets beat up and knocked out, and then there goes his career. So I worry about that. Again, Philip Lintz, nobody cares about. Nobody really wants to know. Everybody wants, let's be honest, everybody's expecting him to get knocked out by Francis. It's what's going to happen, right? That's everybody's expecting it. Again, Diaz versus Perry seems like it could be a bit of a war because those two guys always kind of leave it all in the octagon. Yeah. The rest of the card, cool. But again, there's not much here that makes me think I need to sit down. I need to watch this. I need to spend any money on this. I need to care about this. Again, it's something where if there's a hockey game on or something else, I'm watching that. Yeah. I just don't like it. Like I said, there's a reason why they're all fighting here and not in the UFC. I know that, Rousey was talking about we really wanted the UFC to do this. And this is one thing where I think Dana White knew. It's like, look, this is just another one of those Triller Paul
Yep.
brothers, card boxing, fun card, like throw those all. They have a spot, like you said, they're going to make their money.
Yep.
But it's not going to be super interesting in my sense of anything more than just watching it because you're watching it for old time's sake. But again, I don't expect this to be pretty crazy.
Yeah, or car crash TV, right? Like I can't not look at it, kind of thing.
Yeah. So.
We only got you for about 2 or 3 more minutes here. Is there anything coming out of UFC 238 on Saturday that you wanted to weigh in on? An incredibly entertaining co-main, a fairly shocking main event. The floor is yours here, just as we wrap up, buddy.
I think, I kind of rewatched the main event.
328, sorry, not 238. Not that it matters, but
yeah. Strickland versus Chimaev. Look, I like that fight. I don't understand how you take the belt off. We discussed as we were texting. How do you take the belt off Chimaev? Like the first round, he was all over him, and there was literally a good chance where there was a close call or two for Sean Strickland in that round where he absolutely was dominated and didn't have anything going on. Mm-hmm. You look at the whole fight in total, there was never one moment where Chimaev was ever in danger of losing that fight.
Right.
You want to go by the point system of he was jabbing him and doing this and he had more strike. Go ahead. There was never a chance for him to really, okay, you're winning this. I don't want to say it was all set up, but the fact that Chimaev wasn't even out of his, fight gear before he announced he was moving up to light heavyweight, and how much the weight kind of did, the weight cut affected him and whatever. And so I look at it as like, does he really care? He's hugging him. He put the belt on Strickland. Like these are the guys that were hating each other. Yeah, it was all dirty. And, these guys talking about how much they love each other and whatever. And I'm like, you guys were being racist. You guys were being ridiculous.
Well, the
shit
Strickland said about Chimaev's mother, like, yeah. If you ever said that about my mother, it's on site, right? Like this is not something where we hug later. Fuck you.
No,
right?
No. And that's what I'm saying. Like it kind of bothered me in that sense, but it's something I'll get over. I feel like that giving Strickland the belt before the White House card helps a little bit, right? It gives that little extra bit of Mr. America. But when you have a guy that's going after Josh Hockett, he's another guy that's trying to make a name for himself as Mr. America with his American bandanas and whatever, and he's saying that this guy's act is too much, and I'm thinking, man, I'm just so sick and tired of Strickland. Again, I don't really see how he won that fight. You want to go by the numbers and point system. I liken a lot of it to the fact of O'Malley versus Peter Yan back in the day when, Yan took him down a couple times, but O'Malley just beat him up and out punched him. But everybody watching said, well, he took him down so many times. Like it was kind of a weird call, but you go back and you watch it and the punches, I go back and I watch it, and Strickland jabbed him about 1,000,000 times, but at the same time, like none of these punches really did a lot of damage and made him, like, again.
Yeah, it was significant strikes versus strikes, right?
Yeah. So I don't like that, but if I do come away with one big thing from the card, I think Joshua Van's already putting himself as one of the best UFC fighters out there.
And you've been talking about him for a while, man, long before most people were talking about him. You've been bringing that guy up.
24 years old, man. How good did he look?
Yes.
Look, he is fending off, Ty was just, Ty was coming after him, but all the takedowns and just the way he defended it, and just it never bothered him. He just said, look, I'll defend this. I'll let you take me down. I'll get up, and he was so quickly in his butterfly protecting himself. How many times did this guy have full mount? And he just was like, bucked him off. Boom, get up, let's box. And he would beat the piss out of him. I thought that he showed that, look, I'm so composed. I'm so confident. Let me box. He ends up getting the finish in round 5. But there was a couple times where when they would stand up and look, Taylor knew exactly what he was doing. He's like, I can't box with this guy. I need to take him down. Mm-hmm. I think there was around round 3 where I'm thinking, okay, I don't know how much longer this guy's hanging on. And then he pulls another takedown and I'm like, oh my God. But Van he was so composed in that octagon. His confidence, again, his composure, never getting rattled, never getting let down or defeated. Like there was just constant a beret of defending and making sure, okay, all right, try to not let this guy take me down, defend it when I am on the ground, get up and then do my thing. And I think he stuck to his game plan, never got rattled. I loved it. I thought it was so fun. And I thought, like, man, this is a guy that definitely is going to put himself, that was such a great fight. One of the fight of the year candidates, because there were some good exchanges back and forth, but you could just see, like, he was just getting beat up, Tyre. Like, and Van was just so clinical in the way he hit him. And I think it was one of the first round where he was just kind of in the middle of throwing a strike, and Van just clocked him and knocked him straight back on him. And man, it was so much fun. I loved it. I think this is a guy that absolutely a name to watch, moving forward.
Might have been fight of the year so far, right?
I think fight of the year, absolutely. It's got to be in that conversation, but I think he's also a fighter too, where he's been so young, but he's fought so much the last couple of years. I'm so happy for him. Again, Pantoja, what happened there, such a fluke injury, and he gets the belt. He had to hear about that, and then he gets into this fight, and everyone's talking, this guy's going to take you down. He's going to beat you. You're younger. This guy's got some experience. Okay, sure. And he just took it all, and he just absolutely didn't let it phase him. Had the big win. I was excited to see that. I loved when he was like, hey, get your shit together, Pantoja, let's run it back. And then they show Pantoja, and he's like, what do you mean run it back? What do you mean? We never even fought. And he's upset. It's like, what, you don't want to fight him? Like, what's going on here? Yeah. But, those two are going to be, that's going to be a
collision
fight.
Course, man.
Can't miss fight. Yeah. That's going to be an awesome fight. Pantoja is just so good as well. So really, really, really want to see that fight next. But I love that fight, Joshua Van. But yeah, a couple other fights. Volkov. I mean, I don't know. That was a boring fight against Waldo Cortez Acosta. But I'm starting to think that there's some fighters that I always get excited about, but then they get into these big moments and they're not able to pull it together. Mm-hmm. So I was a little disappointed by that. But Volkov saying too, I'm not fighting unless it's for the belt. Now, good for you. You're number 2 ranked. Your guy. I don't know. I'm okay with it. Give him a chance against Pereira, whoever wins that fight, and go from there. Atiba Goche, I think I told you, this
you've been
watch.
Yeah, you were talking him up last week. You were texting me about that guy out too. It was, you were right about that, man.
He's a mean fighter, second round TKO. But, I look at that as that was a juiced up fight for him. Like, hey, you got a guy, let's make sure you have a big finish and do this and put your name on the map. I think this is a guy to watch out in the next little while here in the middleweight division. But all in all, I thought it was a pretty good card. My main event got me a little upset. Yeah. So I was kind of sour about that. And then, I don't know, looking forward to the card this weekend. Arnold Allen, okay, I want to see where you're at, but there's not a lot that I'm going to be like, okay, make sure you absolutely watch this card. I think right now is we're going to see the kind of lower point until we get to the White House card, which I think is going to be a bit of a bleep show. Yep. I already kind of know it is, but whatever. I'm excited for it in general. But no, I thought it was a pretty good card over the weekend, man. I was entertained by a lot of the main event the main card. And again, I think that was absolutely fight of the year. Joshua Van, this guy is sick.
Joshua Van is absolutely going to be a star if he isn't already. Steve Bunda, always a star for us. Appreciate you making a little bit of time, man. I should mention for the good listener once more, on Friday, Rob will be back in here. Coming out of the long weekend, you will hear from formerly from CBC Sports, Tom Harrington, a guy who has covered a pile of World Cups, a pile of Olympics. I want to pick his brain on how ready Canada is to host their share of a World Cup and what that's going to look like. And then next week, before he shoots out of town for the summer, where he always gets far more energetic than me, travels far more. He's a young guy. He's still got some energy that I don't. Julian McKenzie will be back in studio before we get fully into summer mode, and we'll kind of do a post-mortem on the NHL season, especially around the nation's capital. So lots coming up on the podcast. Stick around for that. Subscribe wherever you're hearing us right now, and make sure you're following along on social media at Tall Can Audio. Bunda, appreciate you, buddy. I know it's been a hell of a day. I know your day's not done. There's more for you to do, so thanks for making the time, man.
Thanks for having me on, man. And let's have some fun. Look forward to talking to you again soon, dude.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be a good spring, a good summer. Lots still to come. And we will no doubt keep bothering Bunda for that. For Steve Bunda, my name is Matt Robinson. Thanks so much for listening. We will see you on Friday morning.